Imagine working your entire life, diligently saving, following the rules, and trusting that one day you'll be able to retire comfortably. You've done everything right, or so you thought. But then, when the time comes, the system you believed in betrays you. Your savings don't stretch far enough. Inflation eats away your nest egg, healthcare costs skyrocket, and suddenly the dream of retirement feels more like a nightmare. Today we're uncovering a shocking truth. Your retirement plan might not be as secure as you think. Retirement planning has always been sold as a path to safety, stability, and peace of mind. The idea is simple. Save, invest, and let compounding do its magic until the day you hang up your work boots. But the reality of retirement in today's world is far more complicated. Rising life expectancy, market volatility, and outdated retirement models have created a crisis that very few people are prepared for. And if you're not careful, your carefully built plan might backfire, leaving you with less security than you bargained for. When we talk about retirement, the conversation often begins with an assumption that the plan you've been following will one day take care of you. Maybe it's your 401k, maybe it's an IRA, maybe it's a company-sponsored plan, or maybe you've been counting on Social Security. It feels safe because it's what everyone else is doing. But beneath that surface of safety lies a fragile system, one that is creaking under the weight of outdated models, economic instability, and shifting demographics. And unless you understand the cracks, you risk walking straight into them when it matters most, at the exact moment you're supposed to enjoy the rewards of your labor. To grasp why retirement plans can backfire, we have to look at where the modern idea of retirement even came from. A century ago, retirement wasn't a widespread expectation. People worked until they physically couldn't anymore, often living with their families who supported them in their final years. Then came pensions, particularly after World War II, when companies offered guaranteed income for life after decades of service. That system worked because the math made sense. Life expectancy was shorter, companies had more workers than retirees, and economic growth was steady. But today, the math has flipped. Life expectancy is up, pensions are nearly extinct, and instead of guaranteed income, workers are handed tools like 401ks and told, "Here, manage it yourself." These accounts shifted all the risk from corporations to individuals. And while they can work well in theory, in practice they demand financial literacy, discipline, and consistency, three things most people struggle to maintain. The result is a nation of savers who believe they're preparing for retirement, but who may actually be building a time bomb. Now layer on inflation. Inflation is one of those invisible forces that silently robs you over time. Imagine setting aside $500,000 for retirement. In today's dollars, that sounds like a substantial cushion. But if inflation averages just 3% per year, in 20 years, that $500,000 will only have the purchasing power of about $275,000. That's nearly half gone, not because you spent it, but because the currency lost value. For much of the last decade, inflation was relatively low, lulling people into complacency. But the last few years shattered that illusion. Prices spiked, groceries became more expensive, rent climbed, and retirees felt the burn immediately. Suddenly, safe retirement plans built on outdated inflation assumptions no longer held up. What planners promised would last 30 years might run dry in 15. Healthcare makes this picture even more grim. Few people want to think about it when they're young, but healthcare costs are one of the largest and most unpredictable expenses in retirement. It isn't just hospital visits or prescription drugs. It's the cost of living with chronic conditions, the rising price of insurance, and the terrifying possibility of long-term care. Right now, the average annual cost of a private room in a nursing home in the US is over $100,000. Multiply that over several years, and even millionaires can find themselves drained. Medicare helps, yes, but it doesn't cover everything. Many retirees discover this too late, realizing that the comfortable savings they set aside evaporates when their health takes an unexpected turn. This brings us to longevity, the paradox of modern retirement. Living longer is a blessing. Advances in medicine and healthier lifestyles mean many people live well into their 80s or 90s. But financially, longevity is a double-edged sword. Retirees now have to stretch their money much further. A retirement plan designed for 15 years is not the same as one that has to last 30 or 40 years. Every year you live longer than expected magnifies the risk that you'll run out of money. It's called longevity risk, and it's perhaps the greatest unspoken threat to retirement security. Think about it. The longer you live, the more inflation compounds against you. the more health care you likely need, and the more likely you'll face economic downturns along the way. Yet many retirement models still operate with assumptions rooted in decades past. And then, as if all that wasn't enough, there's the looming question of taxes. Retirement accounts are attractive because of their tax advantages. You defer paying taxes now in exchange for paying them later when you withdraw. But here's the catch. You have no control over what tax rates will be when you retire. Governments, especially one as indebted as the United States, may decide to raise taxes to cover ballooning deficits. If that happens, retirees could find themselves paying far more in taxes than they ever planned for. That nest egg you thought would be yours? The government may take a bigger slice than you bargained for. We also can't ignore market volatility. Retirement accounts are heavily dependent on the stock market. Yes, over the long run, the market tends to rise, but retirees don't live in theoretical long runs. They live year to year. If you happen to retire during a downturn, your withdrawals compound your losses. This is called sequence of returns risk. Two people with identical portfolios can retire at different times and end up with drastically different outcomes, simply because of when the market crashed. Imagine saving for decades, retiring in 2008 or 2020, and watching a third of your portfolio vanish overnight. Even if the market recovers, you may never get that time, or that money, back. Another overlooked danger is debt. Many people are entering retirement today still carrying mortgages, credit card debt, or student loans they co-signed for their children. Retirement assumes lower expenses, but debt flips that on its head. Servicing debt on a fixed income adds stress, reduces flexibility, and can drain savings faster than you expect. And let's not forget Social Security. For millions of Americans, Social Security isn't just supplemental income. It's the backbone of their retirement. Yet the Social Security Trust Fund is projected to run into shortfalls by the 2030s. Unless Congress intervenes, benefits could be cut by about 20%. That means future retirees may receive less than they've been promised, even after paying into the system for decades. This looming uncertainty adds another layer of fragility to retirement plans. All these risks, longevity, inflation, healthcare, market volatility, taxes, debt, and the instability of government programs, form a perfect storm. On their own, each is manageable. Together, they create a retirement landscape filled with pitfalls. And here's the hardest truth of all. Most people are underprepared. Surveys show that nearly half of Americans nearing retirement age have saved less than $100,000. That isn't even enough to cover healthcare costs, let alone decades of living expenses. Even those who have saved diligently may discover that what looks sufficient on paper isn't enough in practice. Now, why does this matter so much? Because retirement isn't just about money. It's about freedom, dignity, and peace of mind. When your plan backfires, it isn't just your finances that suffer. It's your entire vision of what life after work should be. Instead of traveling, enjoying hobbies, or spending time with grandchildren, you may find yourself stressed, constrained, and working part-time just to stay afloat. The dream of retirement turns into a new kind of prison, one defined not by work, but by scarcity. And yet, this crisis isn't inevitable. Recognizing the flaws in the system gives you the power to adapt. The future of retirement belongs to those who see beyond the glossy brochures and safe assumptions. It belongs to those who question whether the old playbook still applies. Because the truth is, the world has changed. Inflation isn't tame, healthcare isn't cheap, markets aren't predictable, and governments aren't guaranteed to keep their promises. Your retirement plan can either acknowledge these realities or ignore them at your peril. The uncomfortable reality is that retirement planning, as most people practice it, is broken. It's built on outdated assumptions, sold with oversimplified models, and fueled by blind trust. But awareness is the first step toward resilience. If you can see the cracks now, you can start to build a plan that bends but doesn't break. A plan that anticipates inflation. A plan that expects healthcare costs. A plan that doesn't lean on Social Security as a savior. A plan that's flexible enough to adapt to the unknown. The question you need to ask yourself is this: are you preparing for the retirement you dream of, or the retirement that's actually coming? Because if your plan is stuck in the past, the future may catch you off guard. And when that happens, the safety you thought you built might backfire in ways you never saw coming. Just this year, new reports showed that nearly half of Americans approaching retirement have less than $100,000 saved. At the same time, Congress is debating adjustments to Social Security, warning that without reform, the program could face insolvency by the 2030s. Inflation is slowing but remains above target levels, and interest rates, while cooling slightly, are still high compared to the last 2 decades. All of this creates uncertainty that will directly affect retirement plans in the near future. The message is clear. The rules of retirement are changing faster than most people realize. Think of retirement not as a finish line, but as a second act. A stage where freedom, opportunity, and reinvention can happen, if you prepare wisely. The comfort you crave doesn't come from blindly trusting old systems. It comes from building flexibility, resilience, and awareness into your plan. Because the truth is, the future of retirement isn't guaranteed. And if you don't adapt now, your so-called golden years could turn into years of regret. So ask yourself, is your retirement plan bulletproof, or is it a ticking time bomb? Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate you watching. If you found this useful, a like would be fantastic, and subscribing helps me keep creating content you'll hopefully enjoy. Please share your experiences and any questions in the comments. I always try to read and respond. Your support keeps this channel going. Until our next video, take care and have a wonderful day.